What if the only thing holding you back was the version of you that refuses to start? In this video, we dive deep into the mindset, discipline, and quiet power it takes to force yourself to win, just like Napoleon Hill taught. No hype, no shortcuts, just real, lasting change. If you're ready to break through your limits and build the life you were meant to live, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because this is only the beginning. Let's get started. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must look in the mirror, not just to see their face, but to meet their reflection with honesty. That moment, however uncomfortable, marks the beginning of growth. It's the quiet spark that precedes the fire. You don't need a cheering crowd, applause, or grand encouragement. What you need is a still moment of truth, when you look at yourself and say, I must do more. I must become more. I must win, not because the world expects it, but because my soul requires it. This moment is not dramatic. It often comes in silence, in the middle of the night, during a walk, after a failure, or while sitting alone with a cup of coffee, wondering where the years have gone. But it comes. And when it does, it must not be ignored. Every success story begins with this seed, this whisper that says, you are not done yet. Too many people wait for the perfect conditions to take action, not realizing that the moment you're uncomfortable is the very moment to begin. You don't wait for confidence, you build it. You don't wait for motivation, you summon it. You don't wait for a path, you walk, and the path reveals itself. This is the first lesson in forcing yourself to win. You must begin before you feel ready. You must decide that your life matters enough to disrupt comfort. Because comfort, while cozy, is also where dreams go to die. Nothing extraordinary grows in a bed of routine. The starting point of all achievement is desire. But let's go deeper than that. Desire on its own is not enough. Everyone wants more, everyone wishes they could be more, but few are willing to suffer for it, to discipline themselves for it, to sacrifice for it. That's what separates the exceptional from the average. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's willingness. Willingness to force yourself to rise when your body wants rest. Willingness to speak up when your voice trembles. Willingness to try again when the odds look stacked against you. And so the question becomes, how willing are you? Not when it's easy, not when it's new, not when it's exciting, but when the fire has gone out, when the results are invisible, when you are tired, broke, afraid, and doubting yourself. Will you push then? Because that's the test. That's where champions are forged, not in the victory lap, but in the lonely grind. And if you're in that place now, take heart. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are standing in the sacred gap between who you are and who you're meant to be. And every great person who ever lived stood exactly where you are. They just chose to move. One step, one page, one rep, one more try. Not because it was easy, but because they refused to remain ordinary. You must understand this. Forcing yourself to win does not mean living with cruelty. It means living with clarity. It means saying, I care enough about my future to endure temporary discomfort. It means setting a standard so high that your excuses can't reach it, and then showing up every single day, even if all you can do is crawl. This is the seed, the spark, the whisper that says, move. Your greatness is waiting, not in some far-off place, but on the other side of resistance. Don't wait for the world to give you permission. Give it to yourself. Force yourself to win, not for applause, not for validation, but because you owe it to the person you were always meant to become. There is a quiet prison that holds more people captive than bars of steel ever could. It is the prison of excuses. These are not loud, obvious things. They are subtle. They are well-dressed. They wear the costume of logic, of reason, of practicality. They sound like, now's not the right time. I don't have the experience. What if I fail? I'm too old. I'm too young. I have responsibilities. These excuses whisper to us in our weakest moments, and they sound so reasonable that we rarely question them. But beneath their calm voice is a lie, a dangerous lie, because none of these statements are the real reason we don't move forward. The real reason is fear. The real reason is doubt. The real reason is hesitation disguised as wisdom. If we are to win, we must call these excuses what they are: chains. Chains that we placed upon ourselves. Chains that we continue to carry because we have convinced ourselves that they are protection, but they are not. They are walls. They keep us from stepping into the light of our own potential. The problem is not that life is unfair or that opportunities are scarce. The problem is that too many people are waiting for the perfect condition to start, and perfect never comes. Life will always be chaotic. You will always be a little unprepared. You will always have a reason not to, and still you must choose to begin. You see, winning is not something that happens to people. It is something that people force into reality. That is what Hill meant when he said success is achieved by those who keep on trying with a burning desire. Not a flicker, not a hope, a burning desire. That kind of intensity will melt excuses. That kind of fire cannot be put out by fear. The only way to feed that fire is to act, especially when you don't feel like it. Because the more you act, the more you build momentum, and momentum is what turns average people into extraordinary forces. There's a great misunderstanding in today's world. People believe motivation comes first, then action, that you must feel inspired before you do the work. But this is backward. Action creates motivation. Taking even the smallest step forward, however imperfect, fuels the engine of persistence. And persistence is stronger than inspiration. Inspiration is a spark, but persistence is the hammer that keeps pounding long after the spark fades. When you understand that, you stop waiting for motivation, you stop waiting for your feelings to align, and you start doing the thing you promised yourself you would do, because your word to yourself matters more than your mood. Ask yourself this question honestly. How many times have you known what to do and simply didn't do it? How many times did you wake up filled with good intentions and go to bed with regret because you didn't follow through? Not because you were incapable, not because life got in the way, but because you made an excuse. You let comfort win. You let your current self sabotage your future self. That pattern must be broken. Not next week, not next year, today, right now. You must draw a line in the sand and declare that you are done negotiating with your potential. It is not enough to be inspired. It is not enough to dream. You must decide, and then you must act. Action, even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain, will always carry you further than perfection ever could. The most successful people are not those who got everything right. They are the ones who refused to stop, even when they got it wrong, even when the plan fell apart, even when people doubted them, even when they doubted themselves. They understood something vital. The only way to silence excuses is through action, repetition, relentlessness, showing up on the hard days, showing up when nobody is watching, showing up when you're tired, discouraged, or confused. That's what it means to force yourself to win. You must become your own greatest accountability. No one is coming to rescue you, no one is going to do the work for you, and no one will believe in your dream more than you. The world rewards results, not intentions. It honors effort, not excuses. You don't get points for almost starting. You don't get rewards for good plans that go unused. You only get what you fight for, what you earn through sweat, sacrifice, and sustained effort. That is the truth, harsh as it may sound. But within that truth is also great freedom, because it means you are in control. You are not a victim of your environment. You are not doomed by your past. You are the author of your next chapter. So rewrite the story, change the language. Replace I can't with I must. Replace I'll try with I will. Replace maybe one day with today. And then back those words with movement. One small win, repeated daily, becomes a transformation. That's not a theory, it's a law. Hill called it the power of definiteness of purpose, knowing clearly what you want, declaring it boldly, pursuing it without apology. When you operate with that level of certainty, the excuses begin to lose their grip, because excuses cannot survive in an environment of commitment. And that is what this is truly about, commitment. Not interest, not temporary motivation, but deep, unwavering commitment. That is what you owe yourself. Not for applause, not for fame, but because this is your life. No one else can live it for you. No one else can climb your mountain. You must do that. And if you're tired of circling the same goals, repeating the same cycles, and waking up with that dull ache of unrealized potential, then it's time not to wait, but to force yourself to win. Not with violence, not with cruelty, but with love, with discipline, with belief. Because that version of you, the one who wins, is not some stranger. It is you, unchained from fear. It is you, unleashed. And the key to becoming that person has always been within reach. It's the choice you make today, right now. Choose to break the cycle. Choose to act. Choose to commit. Discipline is the bridge between goals and achievement, and it is a bridge built slowly, with effort, repetition, and self-respect. There are many people who dream, who plan, who speak passionately about what they want to do or who they wish to become, but few ever cross that bridge. Why? Because it is not easy. Because discipline is not glamorous. It is quiet. It is daily. It is often unseen. And it requires that you do the work long after the excitement has disappeared. To force yourself to win is to understand that discipline is not punishment. It is power. It is self-respect in action. It is your ability to give yourself a command and follow through, even when no one else will ever know whether you did or didn't. There's something deeply dignified about the person who honors their own word to themselves. That person doesn't need praise to keep going. They don't need external accountability. They are moved by a deeper force, the desire to live in alignment with who they say they are. And that is what discipline really is, alignment. It is not about rigidity or perfection. It is about making decisions that match your values, even when they are inconvenient, especially when they are inconvenient, because that is the real test. Who are you when your back is against the wall? Who are you when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you've been knocked down again and again? The disciplined person keeps walking, maybe slower, maybe with a limp, but they keep walking. I wrote extensively about the power of persistence and the need for self-mastery. I understood that no amount of talent, intelligence, or even opportunity could replace the internal engine of discipline. It is the force that keeps the dream alive when results are delayed, and they will be delayed. That's something most people are not prepared for. They start a new goal full of enthusiasm, expecting rapid results, and when progress is slower than expected, they quit. But the disciplined person anticipates the delay. They are not surprised by difficulty. They are not shaken by slow returns. They know that growth has a rhythm, and it cannot be rushed. So they show up anyway. They do the work anyway, because their commitment is not dependent on conditions. One of the most powerful things you can do is train yourself to show up on the days when nothing feels aligned, not because you expect magic to happen that day, but because you understand that every day counts. Every day is a brick in the foundation of your future, and skipping bricks weakens the structure. You cannot build a strong, unshakable life on a foundation of inconsistency. You cannot win if your only effort is occasional. Winning requires rhythm. Winning requires reliability. It requires that you become the kind of person who does what they say consistently, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard, when it's dull, when it's inconvenient. Especially then, there is a hidden kind of power that grows in you when you do this. It's quiet. You won't notice it overnight, but one day you will wake up and realize that you trust yourself, that you've become someone you can rely on, and that trust is everything, because when you trust yourself, you stop doubting every decision. You stop second-guessing your instincts. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you what to do. And that is what self-discipline buys you. Not just success, but freedom. The freedom to lead your life with clarity, confidence, and control. Let's be honest. Most people are not losing because of some external force. They are losing because they lack internal command. They say they want change, but their habits speak otherwise. They speak of ambition, but their actions betray hesitation. And until you close the gap between what you say and what you do, you will remain stuck. That is the painful truth. But within that pain is the key to transformation. Because the moment you say enough, the moment you stop tolerating your own delays and distractions, that is the moment your life begins to change. Discipline is not something you are born with. It is a skill, a muscle. It grows the more you use it. And like any muscle, the beginning is the hardest. At first, it feels unnatural. It feels forced. You will want to quit. You will want to go back to ease. But if you can hold the line, if you can fight through those early days, something begins to shift. The discomfort fades. The momentum builds. The small wins pile up. And one day, the very thing that felt impossible becomes part of your nature. You no longer have to drag yourself to do the work. You do it because it is who you are. That is the gift of discipline. It changes your identity. And make no mistake, identity is the secret to lasting transformation. You can set goals all day long, but if you still see yourself as the kind of person who quits, who cheats, who delays, those goals will eventually collapse under the weight of that old identity. Real change happens when you decide, this is who I am now. I am the kind of person who finishes what I start. I am the kind of person who rises when it's hard. And every act of discipline reinforces that belief. Do not underestimate the power of small, consistent acts. The world is full of people waiting for massive breakthroughs, waiting for big moments. But the truth is that victory is not found in one grand decision. It is found in 1,000 small ones. Getting up early when you'd rather sleep, saying no to distractions, finishing what you started, following through when motivation is gone. These are not glamorous acts. No one claps for them. But they build a character that cannot be shaken. They build a life that cannot be broken. And that is what you are here to do. You are here to build something unshakable, not just in your career, not just in your finances, but in your soul, in your spirit, in the way you carry yourself. Because when you live with discipline, you move through life with a different kind of power. You walk into rooms differently. You speak differently. You believe differently. And others feel it. Because self-discipline radiates. It shows up in your posture, in your choices, in your presence. You don't need to prove yourself. You are yourself fully, authentically, powerfully. So, if you are serious about winning, not just once, not just occasionally, but over and over, then you must embrace discipline, not as a temporary tool, but as a permanent companion. You must treat it not as a burden, but as a blessing, because that is what it is. Discipline is the quiet friend that walks with you when the world is noisy. It is the anchor when emotions rise. It is the path when the road is unclear. And the more you lean on it, the stronger it grows. You will not always feel like doing what must be done. That is normal. But feelings are not facts. Feelings are not destiny, and feelings are not your master. You are. You are the one who decides. You are the one who moves. You are the one who wins. And you win not by chance, not by luck, but by choice. The choice to discipline your actions, the choice to lead your life, the choice to keep going. So, as you move forward, do so with this truth burning in your heart. You do not need to wait for some magical moment to begin. The power has always been within you. The moment you decide to stop negotiating with your excuses and start honoring your discipline, that is the moment you begin to win. If you wish to force yourself to win, you must first learn to build a mind that serves you, not one that sabotages you. The mind is not merely a vessel for thoughts, it is the command center of your life. Everything you do, everything you believe, everything you achieve or fail to achieve begins in that invisible world between your ears. I emphasize again and again that thought is the beginning of all greatness, that what you plant in the soil of your mind will grow, whether you like it or not. And so, the question you must ask yourself is this: what have I allowed to take root in my mind? Are you cultivating thoughts of strength, courage, and resilience? Or have you, often unconsciously, given space to doubt, limitation, and fear? The truth is, many people have inherited the thoughts they live by. They were told they weren't smart enough, and so they believed it. They were raised in struggle, and so they assumed prosperity was for others. They failed once, and so they labeled themselves incapable. But what if none of that is real? What if it is all just a story that repeated so often it began to feel like truth? You see, your beliefs are not permanent. They are not laws of nature. They are flexible, moldable, and most importantly, changeable. If you can change your thoughts, you can change your life. But make no mistake, it is work. It is the hardest work of all, because changing your mind requires that you challenge what you've accepted for years. It requires that you stop defending your limitations and start questioning your fears. To force yourself to win, you must become the architect of your inner world. You must take full ownership of your thinking. You must become aware of what you say to yourself when no one else is listening. Are you encouraging yourself or criticizing yourself? Are you focusing on your progress or your problems? Are you speaking in terms of what's possible or what's probable? These choices, repeated over time, determine everything. Not because thoughts alone create outcomes, but because thoughts create behaviors. And behaviors, repeated daily, shape your destiny. You cannot think like a victim and live like a victor. You cannot dwell in weakness and expect to walk in strength. This is not about lying to yourself. It's not about pretending life is perfect. It's about choosing thoughts that empower rather than diminish you. Every time you face a challenge, you have a choice. You can say, "This is too hard," or you can say, "This is making me stronger." You can say, "Why is this happening to me?" Or you can say, "What can I learn from this?" Those choices may seem small, but over time they build a different you, a wiser you, a stronger you, a version of yourself capable of withstanding the storms and still pushing forward. Most people spend their days reacting to circumstances, reacting to people, reacting to emotions. They live in a constant state of mental defense. But winners, true winners, live by design. They take time to shape their thoughts on purpose. They use affirmations, journaling, meditation, reflection, not because it's trendy, but because they understand the necessity of mastering their mind. They know that before they can conquer the outer world, they must first command the inner one. You cannot hope to build a legacy with a mind built on insecurity. You cannot rise if your thoughts are always dragging you down. And so you must decide, who is in charge of your mind? Your fears or your future? The mind is like a garden. If you do not plant purposefully, weeds will grow automatically. Negative thoughts are default. Doubt is the baseline. But faith, not faith must be chosen, confidence must be constructed. Courage must be called forth again and again, and that is your task, to replace the weeds with seeds, seeds of resilience, seeds of belief. Seeds of intention, not once, not occasionally, but daily. You brush your teeth every day. You clean your body every day. Why would you not clean and strengthen your mind with the same devotion? This is not about positivity for the sake of illusion. It's about programming your mind to see opportunity where others see obstacles. It's about training yourself to keep going when logic says to quit. The mind, when trained, becomes a powerful ally, but when left unchecked, it becomes your greatest enemy. Your thoughts can talk you into greatness, or they can talk you out of it. They can convince you to take one more step, or they can persuade you to stay where it's safe. Either way, you're always being influenced, and that influence is internal long before it's external. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Those words have echoed for generations because they speak a fundamental truth. Belief is the gateway to creation, but belief does not happen by accident. You must nurture it, feed it, protect it from the toxins of cynicism, fear, and negativity. That means being mindful of who you spend time with, what you consume, what you repeat, because everything you allow into your mental space either strengthens or weakens your inner resolve. And your resolve, your decision to move forward, no matter what, is what will ultimately determine your success. So if you find yourself stuck, discouraged, overwhelmed by doubt, go back to the source. Don't just try to fix your schedule, your goals, your plans. Go deeper. Fix your mindset. Begin again at the level of thought. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself? What do I believe about success? What do I believe is possible for me? And then challenge every limiting answer that arises, because you were not born with those limits. You learned them. And anything learned can be unlearned, replaced, rewritten. You must train your mind to support your vision, not sabotage it. That begins with language. The words you use shape the reality you live in. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't, I'm not ready, I'm not enough, your brain will find evidence to support those beliefs. But if you shift the language, even slightly, to I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm getting stronger, you invite new evidence, new perspectives, and new behaviors. This is not magic. It's neuroscience, it's mindset, it's the daily discipline of speaking power into your life until power becomes your norm. You do not need to wait until you feel confident to start thinking like a winner. In fact, you must begin thinking like one before the results show up. Because it is that thinking that leads to action, and it is that action that brings the results. This is the inner blueprint of all success, and it is built with intention, with consistency, with care. You are not broken, you are not stuck. You are simply at the threshold of a new mental standard, one that demands awareness. One that requires that you rise above the noise of fear and plant the voice of faith. Speak to yourself, not as you are, but as who you are becoming. Encourage yourself with clarity, discipline, and truth, because the person who wins is not the one with the easiest path. It's the one who masters their mind along the way. And if you do that, if you become the architect of your thoughts, you will begin to notice a shift. You will respond to setbacks with calm. You will meet challenges with curiosity. You will face resistance with resilience. And that version of you, the one who lives from within instead of reacting to what's around, that version is unstoppable. If there is one thread that runs through every story of lasting success, It is the power of decision. Not weak, half-hearted intentions, not vague ideas scribbled on a piece of paper, but firm, unwavering, intentional decisions. Decisions made in the silence of solitude, often without applause, often without approval. And yet, these decisions are the very turning points that shape the entire trajectory of a person's life. I declare the mastery of procrastination is the one great weakness which most men must conquer. And what is procrastination at its root, if not the avoidance of decision? We put things off not because we lack knowledge, but because we fear the commitment. We fear the consequences. We fear stepping into the unknown. But to force yourself to win, you must learn to make decisions quickly and clearly, and to stand by them with strength. The undecided mind is a weak one. It wavers. It hesitates. It moves forward only to retreat. It questions its own voice until that voice grows silent. And what's worse, indecision breeds confusion. It clouds your ability to see what matters. It distracts you with options until the weight of choice feels heavier than the choice itself. But clarity is born from courage. The courage to say, this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm becoming. This is where I'm going. No plan is perfect. No path is free of obstacles. But decisive people don't need guarantees. They need only a vision strong enough to justify the risk. Most people wait far too long to decide. They wait for signs. They wait for certainty. They wait for the fear to vanish. But winning is not about waiting. It's about acting. You must decide while the path is still foggy. You must move while your hands are still shaking. You must commit before you know how it will all work out. Because it's not the decision that's dangerous. It's the delay. Every moment you hesitate, doubt gains strength. Every time you pause to second guess, momentum dies a little more. But every time you choose, even imperfectly, you reclaim your power. And the truth is, no decision is ever final. You can adjust your course. You can revise your strategy. What matters is that you move, that you interrupt the paralysis, that you stop entertaining 1,000 possibilities and step into one path with full presence. The mind becomes sharp when it is given direction. It becomes focused when it is no longer cluttered with the weight of indecision. You don't need to know every step. You just need to choose the first one and commit to it. That's where strength begins, in movement, in action, in doing, not doubting. There's a kind of respect that life gives to those who choose boldly. Opportunities reveal themselves not to the hesitant, but to the committed. People who move with conviction are often met with resources, support, and alignment that only show up after they've stepped forward. That is the unseen reward of decision. It clarifies the world around you. It eliminates distractions. It draws the right people to you. And it repels everything that doesn't belong. Because a person with a clear decision radiates a frequency that is unmistakable. I am here. I am ready. I am all in. But how do you build that kind of decisiveness? It begins with self-trust, with the belief that even if the road ahead is hard, even if mistakes are made, you will figure it out. You will adapt. You will endure. That trust is not arrogance. It is necessity. You must trust yourself enough to take risks, even if the outcome is uncertain, because every meaningful pursuit is uncertain. Every dream worth having requires that you step forward without a safety net. And that's what most people run from. They want guarantees. They want step-by-step assurance. But nothing in life offers that. And the longer you wait for it, the more life will pass you by. So ask yourself, what decisions have I delayed? What choices am I avoiding because I fear the unknown? Where have I traded momentum for overthinking? These are the silent thieves of greatness. Not failure, not effort, not even opposition, but hesitation, indecision, the inability to claim your power and say, this is my path and I will walk it even if I must walk it alone. That level of clarity cuts through fear. It silences the noise. It makes you dangerous to everything that once held you back. Think about the people you admire, not for their fame, but for their strength. What do they all have in common? They choose, they act, they live intentionally, and they understand that failure is not the enemy, inaction is. They know that even a wrong turn teaches more than standing still ever will, because progress is messy, growth is clumsy, but indecision is sterile. It produces nothing. It drains your energy and leaves you tired, restless, and disconnected from purpose. That's why you feel stuck. It's not that you don't know what to do, it's that you haven't fully committed to doing it. And here is where the power of decision reveals its deepest gift: identity. Every decision you make is a declaration of who you are. When you decide to train every day, you become an athlete. When you decide to write every day, you become a writer. When you decide to lead with courage, you become a leader. Identity is not something you wait to find, it's something you choose to build. And the foundation of that building is your ability to decide again and again, boldly, unapologetically. You will not always make the right decision, but you can always make a decision with the right spirit, a spirit of growth, a spirit of courage, a spirit of hunger, and that spirit will carry you through whatever comes, because success is not about getting it perfect. It's about refusing to stop. And you cannot move forward if you are frozen in fear. So decide now. Decide that your life matters more than your comfort. Decide that your future deserves bold choices. Decide that you are done waiting for permission, clarity, or ideal conditions. And then act, even if you don't have it all figured out, even if your voice shakes, even if the path is unknown, because movement breeds clarity, because energy follows intention, and because the act of deciding, truly deciding, activates a power in you that you may have forgotten you had. It reminds you that you are not a passenger in your life, you are the pilot. And the moment you decide where you're going, the world around you begins to shift. So stop waiting, stop overthinking, stop postponing the version of you that you were always meant to become. Choose, commit, move, and if you fall, rise again. Because the power is not in never falling. The power is in refusing to remain on the ground. Every champion, every visionary, every extraordinary human you've ever heard of, they made a decision to begin. And now it's your turn. There is a moment that comes for every person chasing a dream when things do not go as planned. The momentum fades, the energy dwindles, the path grows steep and shadowed, and doubt begins to whisper again. It is in that moment that most people stop, not because they lack talent, not because the goal was unreachable, but because they ran out of persistence. They believed the illusion that effort without results means failure. They confused resistance with rejection, but those who win, truly win, know the truth. Persistence is the dividing line. It is the trait that separates those who simply want from those who are willing to earn. Without persistence, every effort remains incomplete. Every dream remains distant, but with it, the impossible becomes inevitable. I wrote that persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. It is not the flash of brilliance, not the surge of adrenaline, but the enduring strength that holds everything together. It is the decision to keep going when the emotion has passed. It is the decision to rise every time you are knocked down, not just once or twice, but as many times as it takes. That kind of strength is not born of convenience. It is born in discomfort. It is forged in the fire of setbacks and silence, of doors closed and hopes delayed. But each time you rise, even if only by an inch, you grow stronger than before. The world is full of people who gave up one effort too soon. They started with promise, but stopped when the first storm arrived. They didn't realize that most victories are invisible until the very end. The soil looks barren before the seed breaks through. The body looks unchanged in the early days of discipline. The business feels like failure just before it turns the corner. And so they gave up, not knowing how close they were. But those who persist, those who refuse to surrender, eventually see the harvest. Not because they were lucky, but because they stayed in the field. It's not that persistent people don't feel the same pain, the same frustration, the same exhaustion. They do, but they have trained themselves to move anyway. They have come to understand that quitting is always easier, but quitting never brings peace. It brings only temporary relief, followed by permanent regret. And regret is the heaviest burden you can carry. So instead of giving up, they give more. More effort, more focus, more time, even when nothing seems to be working, even when no one is watching, because they are not working for applause, they are working for progress, for pride, for purpose. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is not blindly doing the same thing over and over while hoping for different results. True persistence is intelligent. It adapts, it listens, it learns, it changes strategies when necessary, but it never changes the mission. It recalibrates without retreating. It bends, but it does not break. This kind of persistence is powerful because it is rooted in something deeper than motivation. It is rooted in resolve, a quiet, fierce decision that says, I will not stop, I will not settle, I will not shrink. That's the voice of persistence. And the more you listen to it, the louder it becomes. You must cultivate this voice within yourself, because the road will test you, you will face rejection, you will face slow days, dark days, disappointing days. There will be times when you give your best and the world gives you silence in return. There will be times when nothing you do seems to matter, but those times are not the end. They are the training ground. They are the proving ground where your resolve is sculpted. They are where your character is chiseled into something unshakable. Anyone can move when things are easy, but champions move when it's hard. They keep moving when it hurts, when the results are invisible, when the outcome is uncertain. That's the difference. That's what separates the temporary from the timeless. If you are in that place right now, tired, discouraged, wondering if it's even worth it, I want you to know something. You are not alone. Every single person who has done anything of value has stood in that same place, and they were faced with the same choice, give in or go on. You are at that same crossroads, and though the voice of doubt may be louder, you must listen to the voice of your deeper self, the one that still believes. That voice may be faint, but it's still alive, and it only needs one thing to grow: your decision to take the next step. That's all. Not the finish line, just the next step. There's a kind of miracle that happens when you keep going. You begin to grow past the limits you once accepted. You begin to see that pain is not the enemy. It is the evidence of effort. It is the signal that you are on the edge of something meaningful, and when you choose to persist through it, you transform. Not just externally, but internally. You become someone who finishes, someone who follows through, someone who can be trusted, not just by others, but by yourself. And that trust is priceless, because it becomes the foundation of your confidence, the proof that you can handle what life throws at you. Persistence also builds momentum, and momentum changes everything. At first, it feels like pushing a boulder up a hill, slow, heavy, resistant. But the more you push, the more it moves. And once it starts rolling, it carries you, not because the work has become easier, but because you have become stronger. And the only way to get there is to keep pushing, even when it feels pointless, especially when it feels pointless. Because right after that moment, after that final push you almost didn't make, is when things begin to shift. The opportunity shows up, the breakthrough happens, the phone rings, the right person sees your work, but only for those who stayed in the fight. This is the truth many people will never tell you. The price of success is high. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you time. It will cost you excuses. But the reward is worth it. Not just the external wins, but the person you become. That person, forged in the furnace of effort, is unbreakable. That person can lead, build, love, and serve with depth. Because they didn't just talk about greatness, they earned it, they bled for it. And they carry it with humility because they know what it cost. So don't stop. Not now, not here. You've come too far to go back. You've endured too much to give up. Let your effort mean something. Let your struggle birth something beautiful. And let your story be one of persistence, of refusing to fold when others would have faded, because that story will inspire others. It will remind them that they too can rise, that they too can push forward through pain and come out stronger. Persistence is not glamorous, it's not loud, but it is powerful, it is steady, it is the invisible force behind every visible victory, and if you choose to live by it, you will not only win, you will become someone who cannot lose, because the one who refuses to quit is the one who eventually finds the way. There is a silent force operating behind every action you take, every choice you make, and every limit you believe you have. It's not your willpower, it's not your knowledge, it's not your resources. It's your self-image, your inner identity. The beliefs you carry about who you are form the blueprint for your behavior, your expectations, and even the results you allow yourself to experience. And yet most people are entirely unaware that they are living out a script they never consciously chose. They were told they were average, and so they acted average. They were told they weren't a leader, and so they never led. They were told they couldn't achieve more, and so they stopped trying. But here is the truth that so few ever realize. You do not rise above your self-itch, you rise to it. The most powerful form of change you can make is not in your habits, your schedule, or your routines. It is in your identity, because once you become the kind of person who does what must be done, everything else follows. Habits become easier to maintain. Standards become automatic. Discipline becomes natural. But this transformation must be intentional. You must decide with clarity and repetition who you are now. Not someday, not eventually, now. That decision must not be vague. It must be defined in thought, in speech, and in action. You must begin to speak to yourself as if you already are the person you wish to become. And then you must act accordingly, over and over, until the old identity no longer fits. I understood that success begins in the mind, and that every individual has the power to recreate themselves through focused, consistent thought. When he said, "You are the master of your destiny," he was not speaking in metaphor. He was declaring a principle, that the self you accept is the self you live. And until you upgrade that inner image, every outer change will be temporary. You may find bursts of motivation. You may hit a few milestones. But eventually you will return to the level of your identity. The person who sees themselves as a runner will run even in the rain. The person who sees themselves as a leader will take initiative even in chaos. The person who sees themselves as a winner will rise even after defeat. Identity shapes instinct, and instinct determines destiny. So how do you rebuild a self-image that empowers you rather than limits you? First, you must recognize where your current identity came from. Most of the time, it is built not from truth, but from repetition, repeated experiences, repeated feedback, repeated beliefs. Someone said you weren't good enough, and you repeated it. You failed once, and you repeated the conclusion. Over time, those patterns became personal, but they are not you. They are habits of thought, and habits can be broken. The first step is awareness. Pay attention to the way you talk about yourself, the labels you use, the phrases you repeat in frustration. I've always been like this. I'm just not that type of person. I never follow through. These aren't facts. They're stories. And if you can write a story, you can write a better one. Start by choosing a new identity, not just based on what you want to do, but on who you want to be. Want to be consistent? Start calling yourself consistent. Want to be disciplined? Start identifying as disciplined. Want to be successful? Speak and move as if you already are. This is not delusion, it's direction. You are not lying to yourself, you are aligning with your highest self. And yes, at first it will feel strange. You will feel like a fraud. You will feel like you're pretending. That's normal. That's because your subconscious hasn't caught up yet. But the subconscious doesn't respond to truth or lies. It responds to repetition. If you repeat something enough, it becomes familiar. And once it becomes familiar, it becomes real. The mind will begin to support what it has accepted. That is how transformation happens. Not in an instant, but in the quiet rehearsal of identity over time. And remember, identity is not built in isolation. It is reinforced by evidence. So don't just say it. That live it. Start stacking proof. If you say you're disciplined, act disciplined for 5 minutes, then for 10, then for an hour. Do it daily. Let the small wins stack until your mind cannot deny what you're becoming. Every small act aligned with your new identity strengthens it. Every time you do what the old version of you would avoid, you chip away at that old mold. This is the slow, sacred work of becoming. It is not flashy, it is not instant, but it is real, and it is permanent. Be aware, too, of the environments and people around you. They will often reflect back to you the version of you they've always known, not out of malice, but out of habit. And if you are not careful, you will revert to fit their expectations. That's why part of identity work is protecting your mind, surrounding yourself with people who see your potential, not just your past. Immersing yourself in environments that challenge your current standards and reflect the level you're aiming for. You cannot become something new while clinging to the approval of those who only knew the old you. Let your new identity lead your decisions. Ask yourself daily, what would the disciplined version of me do right now? What would the focused version of me say yes to? What would the successful version of me say no to? And then act accordingly. Because identity is not a feeling, it is a filter. It is the lens through which you interpret and respond to life. And the more you align your behavior with that new lens, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you don't have to force yourself anymore. You just are. This is how you win, by becoming the person who wins, not through willpower alone, but through identity alignment. You force yourself at first, yes, but eventually what once felt like effort becomes instinct. You no longer have to convince yourself to show up, you just do. You no longer debate whether you deserve success, you simply live it, because your self-image has caught up to your intention, and that is when everything changes. Not because the world has shifted, but because you have. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like your goals always seem just out of reach, go inward. Ask yourself, who do I believe I am? Then decide who you truly want to be and begin building that identity with clarity, with courage, and with consistency. You are not bound to the version of yourself you inherited. You are free to create the version you envision. And once that identity is in place, but once it is no longer something you chase, but something you embody, your actions will follow, your results will follow, your life will follow. Because when your identity matches your vision, nothing can stop you, not even you. There's a strength most people overlook when they think about success. It doesn't show up in the gym. It's not measured by bank accounts. It can't be flaunted or bought or easily proven. Yet it holds more power than physical strength or financial leverage ever could. It's the ability to master your emotions, to feel deeply but not be controlled, to face discouragement without surrendering to it, to feel fear, sadness, jealousy, anger, and still move forward with clarity. Emotional mastery is the quiet strength behind every resilient human being. It's what allows you to continue building when others break. It's what steadies you when life throws chaos in your path. And it's what gives your journey depth, maturity, and lasting peace. Most people are at the mercy of their emotions. They feel something and they react. They become angered, so they lash out. They feel insecure, so they pull back. They feel discouraged, so they give up. In that reactive state, they surrender their power to circumstance. They lose direction, lose time, and lose sight of who they're trying to become. But emotional mastery means choosing response over reaction. It means creating a pause between what happens and how you choose to interpret it. It means developing the maturity to feel everything without being swept away by anything. And that kind of mastery doesn't just happen with age or experience. It happens through intention. It happens through self-awareness. It happens through the daily decision to act from your principles rather than your passing feelings. I spoke about the need for emotional control in every chapter of his philosophy. He understood that even the most brilliant plan will fail in the hands of someone who cannot manage their moods. You can be intelligent, talented, driven, but if you're emotionally volatile, you will sabotage your own progress. One moment of anger can destroy a relationship. One decision made in fear can wreck a business. One bout of doubt can derail years of progress. That's the cost of emotional instability. It doesn't care how hard you've worked. It only takes a moment to undo momentum. That's why mastering your emotions is not just important, it's essential. But this doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Emotional mastery is not about denial. It's about discipline. It's the ability to feel anger but not act from it. To feel disappointment but not drown in it. To experience fear but not let it dictate your next move. You don't fight your emotions, Dot. You face them. You learn to sit with discomfort. You learn to process pain without becoming it. That inner work, while invisible, is what gives you the strength to move through the world without being owned by every high and low. And the first step is awareness. Most people don't realize how often they're being driven by emotion. They think they're making decisions from logic, but they're really reacting from wounds, insecurities, and unresolved fears. Emotional mastery begins when you start observing your own inner world, when you pause before reacting, when you ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Where is this coming from? Is this helping me or hurting me? Those questions create space, and in that space you find freedom. The freedom to respond rather than react. The freedom to choose your next move with wisdom rather than impulse. It is in this emotional space that real leadership is born. Not just leadership of others, but leadership of self. Because when you can lead yourself through emotional storms, you become unshakable. You become the kind of person others trust, not because you're always happy, but because you're stable, because you don't panic in crisis, because you don't shrink under pressure, because you can feel the weight of life and still carry it with grace. That kind of power cannot be faked. It is earned through inner work, through discipline, through the commitment to grow emotionally as well as intellectually. One of the greatest shifts in emotional strength is learning to delay reaction. So often we're tempted to speak, to retaliate, to make a decision in the heat of a moment. But wisdom waits. Wisdom listens. Wisdom knows that not every thought deserves your attention and not every emotion deserves a response. When you master your emotional impulses, you gain time, you gain perspective. You gain the ability to respond with precision rather than passion alone. And that precision allows you to move through life with far fewer regrets, far fewer broken moments, and far greater impact. Another crucial element of emotional mastery is the management of fear. Fear is one of the most powerful emotional forces on earth. It stops dreams before they start. It keeps people locked in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and habits that slowly erode their spirit. But fear is not an enemy. It is a messenger. It is the mind's way of saying, something here needs attention. When you learn to listen to fear without obeying it, you grow. You realize that fear is often an indicator of growth, not danger. That it often appears when you are stretching, when you are evolving, when you are nearing a breakthrough. And once you stop treating fear as a stop sign and start treating it as a signal, everything begins to shift. Hill emphasized the importance of emotional transmutation, the ability to take raw emotional energy and redirect it toward purpose. That anger you feel, channel it into focused action. That frustration you carry, pour it into your craft. That heartbreak you're still healing from, use it to deepen your empathy, your strength, your art. Emotions contain energy, and energy, when directed, becomes power. The key is not to resist emotion, but to refocus it, to take what once hurt you and let it fuel you. That's what winners do. They don't run from pain, they alchemize it. They use it as proof of their capacity to endure, to rise, to keep building even when it's hard. Emotional mastery also means learning the language of self-compassion. So often we are harshest with ourselves when we most need kindness. We berate ourselves for not being perfect. We scold ourselves for falling behind. But true strength is not found in self-abuse. It is found in self-support. It is saying, yes, I made a mistake and I will learn from it. It is saying, yes, I feel discouraged, but I will not give up. It is saying, yes, I am still growing, and that is enough. That gentleness does not make you weak. It makes you resilient, because it allows you to keep going even when you are wounded. And that is the greatest act of emotional power, persistence in the presence of pain. So, if you are serious about winning, not just once, but over a lifetime, you must commit to mastering the emotions that rise within you. You must stop being a slave to the emotional weather of each day and start becoming the steady force that holds your course. It won't be perfect. You will stumble. There will be days when emotion gets the better of you. That's okay. What matters is that you get back up and return to the practice. That you keep showing up for the inner work, because no outer success is sustainable without inner stability. Emotional mastery is not the absence of feeling. It is the ownership of it. It is knowing that whatever arises in you, you have the strength to face it, to understand it, and to use it wisely. And once you live from that place, once you become a calm center in a chaotic world, you don't just win, you lead, you inspire, you become the kind of presence this world desperately needs. Grounded, wise, and unstoppable. If you want to change your life, one of the first places you must look is your environment. Most people chase goals with enthusiasm, but never stop to consider that they are trying to thrive in soil that does not support growth. They water their dreams daily, but the environment they're in drains their roots before they can take hold. Your environment is more than your physical surroundings. It's your habits, your influences, your conversations, your space, and your stand. It's the subtle, often unnoticed current that either carries you forward or holds you in place. To force yourself to win, you must become relentlessly intentional about the environments you live in, both outer and inner, and refuse to remain in any space that contradicts your vision. There's a dangerous myth in our culture that willpower is enough, that all you need is grit and discipline and you can overcome anything. And yes, personal power is essential, but what people often fail to see is that willpower weakens over time in the wrong environment. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, distraction, chaos, or low standards, even the strongest will eventually bend. You cannot consistently rise in a place that encourages you to stay the same. Growth may start with a decision, but it is sustained by structure, and your environment is that structure. If you are serious about your future, you must design a life that makes excellence easier and mediocrity uncomfortable. Think about this. We become like the people we spend the most time with, not because we consciously imitate them, but because their thoughts, their language, their energy begin to seep into our subconscious. Their habits become our norm. Their opinions begin to shape our beliefs. If you spend your time with people who complain, you will begin to notice what's wrong before you see what's right. If you surround yourself with people who procrastinate, you'll find comfort in delay. But if you align with people who think big, act boldly, and live with discipline, your own thinking expands. Your own drive deepens, not through force, but through exposure. The standard rises simply because the people around you refuse to live small. This is not about cutting people off with arrogance or judgment. It's about protecting your potential. It's about recognizing when an environment no longer serves your evolution. You don't have to burn bridges, but you do have to be willing to build new ones. Ones that lead to places where your growth is celebrated, not ridiculed. You need to be in rooms where ambition is normal, where accountability is expected, and where vision is spoken as fluently as the weather. And if you don't have that kind of environment yet, create it. Build it from the ground up. One book, one mentor, one new habit. One small decision to start spending time in places that pull you forward rather than hold you back. Your physical space matters too. What you see every day influences what you feel. A cluttered room breeds a cluttered mind. A chaotic schedule feeds anxiety. A noisy environment drowns out reflection. You must carve out space for clarity, for focus, for calm. Whether it's a corner of your room, a desk, or a daily routine, design your space to reflect the life you are building, not the life you are trying to leave behind. Small shifts matter. A clean desk, a notebook nearby, books that challenge you, within reach, quotes on your walls that speak to your future. These are not trivial details. They are anchors for the identity you are stepping into. Environment also includes habits. The systems you build either support your growth or sabotage it. What do your mornings look like? Do they fuel you or deplete you? How do you end your day? Do you wind down with intention or crash into distraction? What do you consume mentally each day? Is your social feed filled with noise or with knowledge? These daily inputs become the environment of your mind. And if you are not protecting that space, you are allowing chaos to become your default. You cannot expect peace when your mental environment is filled with clutter. You cannot expect focus when your habits reward distraction. The role of environment in his teachings spoke of the Mastermind Alliance of a group of individuals who came together to elevate each other's thinking, to share ideas, to challenge each other toward greater achievement. He understood that no great success happens in isolation. Even the most self-driven individuals thrive when surrounded by others who see their vision and speak life into it. If you are the only one in your circle with a dream, you will spend more time defending it than building it. But when you are surrounded by others who are chasing growth, you don't have to explain your hunger. They already understand it. And that understanding gives you the strength to keep going. Sometimes changing your environment is not immediate. You may not be able to move to a new city, leave a job overnight, or instantly find a circle of visionaries. That's okay. Start with what you can control. Change what you read. Shift how you speak to yourself. Spend less time in places that drain you and more in places that inspire you, even if those places are digital, like podcasts, courses, or books. Progress is not about perfection, it's about intention. And every intentional change in your environment, no matter how small, reinforces the message that your vision matters. You must also learn to protect your energy from the environments that you must be in, but do not fully align with. Perhaps you work in a place that is uninspiring, or live with people who do not yet understand your vision. In those cases, you become the environment. You become the one who carries the frequency of strength, of optimism, of purpose. You become the example, the one who raises the standard. That is not easy, but it is possible. And in doing so, you will begin to influence those very environments from the inside out. Change starts somewhere, and often it starts with one person who chooses not to conform to low standards. Winning begins long before the achievement is visible. It begins in the unseen structure of your surroundings, the people, the places, the patterns. If you want to win more consistently, examine where you spend your time. Audit the conversations you engage in. Reevaluate the habits that have become normal. Ask yourself, does this support who I'm becoming? Does this environment match the life I want to build? If not, it's time to shift. Gently, gradually. You are not just a product of your environment. You are the producer of it. And the more intentionally you design it, the more naturally you will grow into the person you're meant to be. Force yourself to win, not just through effort, but through alignment. Align your environment with your goals, your habits with your values, your relationships with your standards, and watch what happens when everything around you begins to reflect the power that already lives within you. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, it will not be your titles that define you. It won't be the applause you once received or the praise that faded with time. It won't be the awards gathering dust on shelves or the records that others eventually surpass. What will define you is the life you lived when no one was watching, the choices you made when the outcome was uncertain, the discipline you showed when it was hard, the resilience you carried when it would have been easier to let go, the quiet strength you chose again and again when fear whispered that you weren't enough, and most of all, what will define you is what you gave to the world, not just in results, but in example. Because the greatest legacy is not in what you leave behind, but in who you become while you are still here. To force yourself to win is not about ego. It is not about domination. It is about becoming so aligned with purpose that you refuse to settle. It is about showing the world through your presence that effort matters, that character matters, that commitment matters. It is about walking into every challenge, not with entitlement, but with a sense of responsibility, knowing that your discipline, your focus, your consistency are not just for you, but for every person you might silently inspire. You don't know who is watching you. You don't know who sees your work, your effort, your persistence, but they are watching. And your life, your example, may very well become the light that pulls them from darkness. Success is not an event. It is a life lived with intention, with faith, and with service. In his writings, he repeated again and again that success without purpose is empty, that riches without character are a burden, that victory without contribution is shallow. And in those teachings lies a deeper message, one that cannot be ignored. You are not just here to climb mountains. You are here to lift others as you rise. You are here to take what you've endured, what you've learned, what you've overcome, and transmit it through your words, your actions, your energy to those who need it most. That is legacy. Not what you take, but what you give. Not what you accomplish, but how you live. So let your life become a message, not a perfect message, but an honest one. Let it say, I struggled, but I stood. I failed, but I grew. I doubted, but I chose faith. I was tempted to quit, but I kept going. Let your life speak for every person who has ever been told to shrink, to play small, to hide their light. Show them that quiet strength is real strength, that winning is not just for the loud, the lucky, or the born talented, but for anyone willing to earn it through relentless effort and unshakable belief. You have within you the power to become someone unrecognizable to your past self, that version of you, the one who keeps promises to themselves, who honors their goals with discipline, who steps forward when it's uncomfortable, is already forming. With every small act of courage, with every quiet morning of commitment, with every decision to show up even when it's hard, you are shaping the person you were always meant to be. And that version of you is not built overnight. It is built brick by brick, moment by moment, year by year. It is built through the repetition of effort and the refusal to break. And that effort compounds, slowly, invisibly, until one day you wake up and realize that you are no longer forcing yourself, you are being yourself. The habits are automatic, the focus is clear, the goals are in motion. You are not pretending to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You are not acting like a leader, you are a leader. You are not pushing yourself anymore, you are moving with purpose. That is the reward of all the unseen work. Not just the results, but the relationship you build with yourself along the way, the quiet pride that comes from knowing you didn't quit, that you honored the vision when no one else saw it. But the journey does not end when you reach your goals. In fact, that is only the beginning. Because once you've proven to yourself that you can win, the next step is choosing how you will use that power. Will you hoard it or will you teach it? Will you isolate in your success or will you extend your hand to others? Will you remain at the mountaintop alone or will you go back down and help someone else rise? These are the questions that legacy asks. Because legacy is not built on achievement alone. It is built on impact, on service, on contribution. There is someone right now who needs the version of you that doesn't give up. Someone who needs to see what it looks like to be consistent, to have integrity, to walk with humility, even after winning. They need proof that it's possible, and your life can be that proof, not because it's perfect, but because it's real, because it's honest, because it shows the world that discipline is possible in the face of distraction, that peace is possible in the presence of pressure, that purpose is possible even in the pain. Let your daily choices echo into eternity. Let them say that you did not settle, that you did not coast, that you did not fall asleep in comfort when the world needed you awake. Force yourself to win not because you must, but because you can, because you were given this time, this life, this chance to show what's possible for someone who refuses to fold. And when you reach the end, you will know you did not watch life pass you by. You participated, you gave everything, you created something powerful within yourself and around you. That is winning. That is greatness. That is a life well lived. And when others ask how you did it, you won't need a long speech. You'll simply smile and say, I decided, I committed, I showed up, and I didn't stop. That's how legacies are built. Quietly, relentlessly, one choice at a time.